Hello everybody and welcome to the school-wide PBIS training for Halls Elementary School. Before we begin, we wanted to touch on some objective points for this presentation and training. We wanted to touch bases on issues to address within your school, PBIS background, implementation, posted behavior expectations, independent group contingencies, modeling, school implementation plan, and some final tips. Some issues we wanted to address within the school is that you have a total of 500 students within your school, grades pre-K through 3rd grade. We are going to pursue the PBIS program intervention for those students, of which 75% of the students have received ODRs for behavior occurring throughout the day. With 50% of your students also receiving 4 or more ODRs, this is a behavior we must address as well. We are also going to be addressing disruptive behaviors with these students in ways PBIS can help address them. So what is PBIS? The students that we work with are different from school to school. So PBIS is a behavior-driven intervention that works within a tiered system based on the number of students engaging in the behavior. We will talk about these tier systems shortly, and we wanted to give you an overview of all 3 tiers to give a larger picture of how PBIS can be utilized in these cases. Some individuals do not know what PBIS is, and we want to clarify what it is and why we use PBIS in school systems. So PBIS is a 3-tiered program that is used to integrate data collected from schools about specific behaviors and implement a practice to improve students' outcome on a day-to-day operation. The tier system is what we want to look at when PBIS is implemented into your school system. Tier 1 is a universal system that is used to create a foundation of support to prevent unwanted behavior and is used with all students. Tier 2 is known as the core foundation and secondary tier and is developed for students with more severe problem behavior, and the aim and idea of Tier 2 is to prevent the behavior before the behavior occurs. Another concept of Tier 2 is that the support helps children on a more specific level. It helps also develop skills from the core school program. With Tier 2, teachers and others involved become more involved with the children that the PBIS is implemented for. Tier 3 is known as the individually based PBIS, or tertiary. This tier focuses solely on the individual and is developed specifically to their problem behavior. This is where you would meet for an IEP meeting to go over specifics about a child and their behaviors and ways to meet with other professionals to develop a plan for that child. More attention is needed at this level to prevent behaviors from happening. The purpose of this training that we are providing will be used to give you more experience and training for the intervention that will be put into your school. We have selected Tier 1 and Tier 2 for your school, so you'll be looking at the universal and secondary tiers. We wanted to give you more information about the tertiary tier, just in case you did need to use a more specific level of intervention. During this training, we propose that your schools come up with a team. This is a recommendation, but it's not a requirement. We recommend that teams set up to be distributed in the duties and implementing PBIS. So we'll first talk about the core team. This team is typically made up of individuals who will be able to meet more frequently and are able to understand and translate the data and can set future goals regarding behaviors. The peripheral team will be the individuals who are collecting data and being in the line of duty. These will be the teachers, instructional teachers as well, and grade level teachers. Those around the behaviors more specifically. Neither team is better than the other because collectively your goal is to decrease the behavior. For your school, we are proposing the implementation of posted behavior expectations and group contingency. These interventions are used to be delivered visually and verbally prompted. The expectations of the rules of the hallway and hold all students accountable. We will go into a little more detail on these interventions on the next slide. So how will posted behavior expectations address disruptive behavior? Posted expectations is a Tier 1 intervention that we are proposing. This is a way to show students visually what is expected in the school, both in the hallway and in the classroom. The intervention style is aimed towards a Tier 1 portion of PBIS, so this is not selected for a specific child or a specific group of children, but is addressing to all the students in the school. We want your expectations within the posted behaviors to be clear and concise and easily observable so that students may see them easily and understand them better. How group contingencies address disruptive behavior. Group contingency will also be used as a PBIS program, but will be used to aim for Tier 2 section of PBIS. This for some of the students and the repeat offenders more specifically. We would like you to set a criteria or standards of expectations when it comes to their behaviors. For instance, if you notice the image on the slide, Javier, Zach, Mina, and Robert are all repeat offenders, and all students are going to be held accountable for their behaviors to meet the expectations. If they meet the expectations, however, they will earn a reward or reinforcement for following the behavior expectations. If they do not meet the criteria, then the reward is rejected. This intervention is good when you have multiple students engaging in the same behavior and when individual interventions for a mass group is impractical. So how will we implement these? We would like you to try to implement these procedures as best as possible. So with that being said, we would like you to form your expectations with a vote based on feedback from the teachers. With these leadership teams, you must learn the procedures as best as possible to make sure fidelity is solid. Without treatment fidelity, you will not be able to implement this correctly. Posting expectations around the school in a visible area that the students are able to see them clearly is the most important aspect for posted expectations. Through your communication with parents, please allow parents to know that these expectations are to be posted. With parents being aware, this will also help increase replacement behaviors outside the home as well. For repeat offenders, we want you to make the contingency criterion to be set for those who are at risk behavior. For those students in the group contingency, we would like you to have the students rewarded based on ODR criterion. This criterion may be a limited amount of ODRs per month, per week. We will let you set that criterion according to what you feel based on your feedback from the teachers. We would like you to reevaluate as much as possible or as needed. Students may decrease their behavior, and reevaluation will help identify those students that have decreased overall ODR behaviors. We advise your school to complete monthly fidelity checks. This is important as the criterion and interventions set need to be implemented specifically, and if there is any change in the intervention fidelity, your intervention may be compromised. So our school-wide implementation plan, we would like you to share with you professional development activities and share that it is important for your staff to understand what PBIS is and how it is to be implemented. Bring this information that you have to your staff and have them practice as much as possible. With professional development activities, this helps gain the confidence and experience of PBIS. We also would like you to do the fidelity checks as mentioned in the slide before. This should be used 1 to 2 times per month in order to properly assess the fidelity of the intervention. If there are areas that you see that are struggling with these checklists, you are able to identify these problems during the meetings and you are able to correct them. PBIS.org has many ways to check for fidelity. However, we recommend the TIPS Fidelity Checklist, which is TIPS-FC, which is constructed by Todd Newton Horner, Algozine, and B. Algozine in 2014. This checklist helps go into detail about what is discussed during meetings and how to identify problems within the meetings, and will also identify issues of implementation. Some final tips are, what do you need if you need additional funding? However, we know that your school does not have the funding to hire extra staff, but we do give kind of a feedback about internal and external funding. We propose that you go with internal fundings for this intervention as it is small. You won't need a lot of staffing to kind of find and identify the behaviors in the hallway, as you will be broken up into the core and peripheral teams. Staff engagement will need to be increased. We would like all the staff to be more engaging in the hallways to monitor the behaviors. As any implementation of a program in a school system, it costs some of the money in order to run them. Volunteer-based programs are usually the route to go, although you are able to get staff to volunteer their time to help get the ball rolling. However, if you don't have a consultant come in and observe and create a plan, then the cost may be a factor that you look into in having PBIS in your school system. The school must look at an overall budget, and do you have the funding required or to acquire all of the necessary materials and supplies for PBIS. And as mentioned before, internal funding. This can help range from paper, printings, supplies, and posters. And we would like you to look internally before looking for external funding sources. We also wanted to talk to you about with any new development of a program, individuals want to know more about what is happening with PBIS. If you are using an internally funded program and the results are not being presented, then the likelihood of a program to continue is slim. With presentations about what PBIS is to school administrators, staff members, parents, and expectations to students, this will increase the confidence in your team and help identify improvements, and this will help continue to keep funding for your program. We call this political support, but this does not mean you go outside for mayors, governors, our government officials. This is just strictly school board members and community members who are associated with your school. Rewards for meeting contingencies must be valuable to the students. We want you to understand that the reinforcement and rewards that the students are getting, if you pick what they want, they may not like that idea. So we want you to find out what the students want as far as rewards, whether it's in a little bit of a longer recess, maybe extra time to play, anything that they seem is strong and valuable to them. And as before, we talked about continuously reevaluating the intervention. That's just with the checklist. We want you to make sure that you are continuously reevaluating and going through it and making those necessary changes when needed. And these are our references. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact us. And here are our contributions. Thank you.